Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Autonomous IT Podcast Network. We've got a really exciting a set of episodes today. We're doing your early 2090s style crossover episode, so you get hands-on IT and automate IT in one. So I've got Jeremy, the Automate IT podcast host, with me here. And today we're going to be talking about the building blocks of IT solutions and how to get started with that. But yeah, Jeremy, you want to go ahead and this is your podcast also, so I'll let you give a quick intro too. So.
I was gonna just say thanks for having me and thanks for doing a 90s style crossover with the Automate IT podcast. I actually tried to think of an example, and I was like, did Friends do a crossover? Did Seinfeld do a crossover? I don't remember. Yeah. I don't remember. I was like, I'm gonna have to go get a Wikipedia list of those and just go back in time.
There's two that I always think of. One of them is there was like this, I don't know, my brothers and I growing up always watched Cartoon Network, and there was a Scooby-Doo Batman crossover from like the 70s that we thought was hilarious.
That one's iconic.
The Rugrats and Wild Thornberries, also iconic.
Yeah. Okay. But no, I remember now the old Scooby-Doo and Batman crossover. That one was awesome. And I'm going to have to go show that to my daughter because she went through Scooby-Doo.
Highly recommended to everyone.
I'm still in a Batman phase. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I always like to start off with non-IT topics. So like, have you been listening to any good new music lately?
I've been dabbling into, the last few years I've been listening to more jazz.
Nice.
So now I like and building a vinyl record collection. So now I have I wanted like a John Coltrane or a Sonny Rollins album just to have while I drink coffee in the background. But I also have the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack on vinyl, which is very jazzy.
Both of those are equally important for a good vinyl collection. But so I just bought, her name's Ada Victoria, and it's kind of like a bluesy country.
Okay.
I just bought that vinyl a couple weeks ago. It was $11 on Amazon. So I don't know if it's still on sale, but I was like, hey, I can't not buy this.
Worth it. Yeah. And then you have them displayed on I like showing some of my favorite ones. We have them. Yeah.
You gotta have them out, and then you gotta have the ones that you're proud of, and you want people to know you listen to out, and then you stick the other ones behind those. So.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, well, all right, we can go ahead and get started then. So, building IT solutions. So a lot of times we talk about automation. Automation can kind of be a scary word sometimes. So we're gonna just talk about it as solving problems. Automation definitely plays a large part in that, but at the end of the day, you're just solving problems. So, I always like to think that the first step is defining the problem, but to define the problem, you kind of have to think in a way that you can solve the problem.
Yes.
So, starting with real world pain points, looking at annoying tasks. That's always a good spot to start. I think, Jeremy, you have any
I was going to say that the mindset too is kind of the hardest part, because it's not only thinking to yourself, like, what is my problem, but how can I not only explain it to someone else, but like, in order to resolve my problem, I kind of have to go through it step by step and be like, okay, what on earth is causing me to make mistakes? Like, what is so manual that I can't be consistent with it? Because I think that when I first started in my IT career, my job was customer experience focused. So it's not like super technical. So you don't think about things in small steps, if you know what I mean. You think about it like, go to Salesforce and get this thing. But then once you do it 500 times, you're like, okay, what step of this can I actually save? Like, instead of it becoming log into Salesforce and go to this page, it becomes, I have to go to the login, then go to this page, click on this button, select this filter. You don't think about it in tiny little baby steps yet. I think you got to get that mindset too of like,
sure.
Yeah, how do I break this down?
And that's tricky because but just taking the time, like you said, the baby steps, like this is the smallest piece that I can break that step down into.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're building a solution, you can combine those, but being able to break that down to the smallest steps that you do each time is, it's really hard to do if you're just coming into it. But it's kind of like the logic of if this happens, then this happens. So kind of if this, then that. So being able to break it down into those steps is hard, but it kind of takes a bit of a mindset shift a little bit. But once you start thinking in that way, it's a lot easier to start solving problems because you can do each of those steps to get to the next step.
I think it's a cool learning experience too, because you get to, oftentimes when somebody has to automate something, it might be someone talking to a teammate and they get to say like, hey, every morning you you use 30 minutes of your time every morning to go get a certain report.
Yeah.
Generate a certain report, download it, put into a spreadsheet. You're taking 30 minutes to do that. And maybe when they're explaining to someone else, they're the one that kind of gets the wheels turning, like, oh, there's an opportunity for me to make it easier, not only for me, but for everyone that has to use this data sheet or something. So it's also kind of a learning experience too, because then they get to say, oh, well, how did I generate the report? What web page did I use? What button did I click? It gets wheels turning. It's when somebody else solves it, it's a learning experience for everyone else too, when they get to see what you did.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the other thing that I think is difficult when you're kind of first starting with this is being able to define success. It's like, okay, like success is fixing all of these problems. Like, okay, like, well, I'm going to say the success is getting the report to generate automatically. Not push the report out to everybody, have everyone look at it, send it back. It's like, no, we're going to take it small steps at a time. We're going to, like, the biggest pain is getting that report out to everyone. If it's that, or this is the biggest pain, we're going to start with that one. And then we can move on from there.
And I think it's like, kind of like, it's like, how do we solve a problem? Can the problem be like one sentence? Like, my problem is that I wish my report was generated automatically. Okay, we solved that. Then I wish it was emailed automatically. Then I wish I could change the time. And then it just becomes, because you're right. If there's no clear, like, if I'm going to solve every problem, you'll probably never be done. It's just like, the problem is this. And that happens to us all the time, where we wrote something like a test maybe, or we used one little step to automate something, and you show it to someone and they're like, hey, it'd be great if it did this. And it'd be great if it did this.
This job is that's a different piece of software.
I'm like, that is not me. Do not make me do that.
Yeah. For sure. So just that's being able to segment the problems, discrete steps, and then be able to break it down so you're not trying to solve all the solutions, all the problems at once. Like, it sounds very obvious, but it's something that, I think everyone,
it's a mindset.
Everyone has struggled with. But
like because you don't think about it as like like, for example, when you check your email, you don't think of it as a 10-step process, but it kind of is.
For sure.
Sound like Marge Simpson there for a second.
But and then so now I was writing this and I wanted this to seem like a bit of an abrupt jump a little bit, but it makes sense. So kind of with IT problem solving, learn to kind of define those problems, and then getting comfortable with Linux is a really good next step also. And so as you're kind of learning to solve those problems, start playing around with Linux. And Jeremy, I know you have a background with Linux also. I have a background with it too. And you want to dive into what makes it such a great kind of a problem solving tool?
Yeah. I mean, I think that for starters, there's a lot of tools that rely on having like a shell or like a bash backend. A very big example of this is, I'm sure a lot of people will get familiar with using GitHub or like GitHub workflows to automate the deployment for just having content changes or content delivered anywhere over the internet. A lot of GitHub work that I've seen will use has the option to use bash shell commands for something like your YAMLs for deploying code. But also for me, I have a little bit of a bias because my upbringing into IT was through a Linux background. But I think the thing is that because Linux is so lightweight, it's going to become natural that whenever you want to deploy an application, you might be using something like Docker, Kubernetes, that kind of lean on you having a little bit of Linux background. And I also think that one thing that makes Linux so viable is that we always laugh about Linux. Like everything's a file on Linux. And it is. When you venture into the world of Linux, you kind of have to learn managing these files, reading them, copying them, understanding when or if they've been updated. And I think that it's a very small time commitment to learn the basics, but those basics are used throughout every step of IT. And, first jumping into the IT industry, I was like, okay, I think what I didn't understand were are the basics. But I always say it now, if anyone ever needs to get started with it, is that everything in Linux is a file. So learning those basic file manipulations of reading them, being able to listing them, those skills go a long way. And that's my take into someone diving into the world of Linux.
And why it's just even useful. Like your CD command, changing directories, listing files, like moving files, copying files, like just being able, or even file permissions, that gets a little bit deeper, but just my recommendation is always just to play with it. I mean, my podcast is called Hands on IT because for me to understand something, I have to be able to play with it and get hands on with it. But the best thing about Linux is that it's free and you can really run it on anything. And so, go ahead.
I think another benefit is that I know we can't really say companies' names, but there's a lot of free resources to kind of get your feet wet. And now, there's always the debate of like using Windows in an IT environment or Linux in an IT environment. But like you said, it's free with the exception of some rare circumstances. Even I myself, I had an old hand-me-down just tower desktop that an IT sysadmin did not want anymore. Just handed it to me. I put CentOS on it, and that was my learning experience. There's also,
that's, I mean, I personally enjoy having like a little home lab at home where I can like mess around with stuff and just, I mean, I don't think I've ever bought anything new for it. I'm just buying like random old things I find on eBay. It's like, oh, this would work for this, and like fixing it, or but like that's with Windows, with Mac OS. I mean, you have to have certain hardware. Windows, you have to have a licensing fee. With Linux, it's a free and open source solution. Most of them are, and it can run on any of the almost anything very very easily. And so, I mean, whether you can spin up like a quick VM in AWS or Azure, Linode, whatever your cloud provider of choice is, that's great. I personally am kind of cheap, and you can also run it like what we were talking about on repurposed old hardware. Or if you don't want to do that, you can, whatever laptop or machine you're currently using, you can run a VM on that. You can even do it on your iPhone. I wouldn't really necessarily recommend that. I tried it one time. I did,
but it's possible. And I have a few. I have some USB drives that are ready to go with Linux distros. One of them being a desktop one, but another one being like a CentOS, because that's just what I started with. I think that the benefit you get out of this is that it's so easy to just dive into it really quickly. And there's also websites that teach you the basics of Linux. I can't name any of them, but some of them were in the past were very helpful to me. And I think another thing that's helpful is some of these courses will try to push you into using some of the online services that in IT you would likely want to use anyway. Azure, AWS, after I got a little bit of Linux experience, then I would go and kind of lease small cloud servers. Because sometimes you can get one for just a couple dollars a month. When I wanted to learn how to manage my own web server with like Apache and Nginx, I did that on a Linux server that I only paid $4 a month for. So, that was really useful to me. That once I kind of had familiarity with what I was working with, I only had to spend a little bit of money to have like a production level
for sure
environment that I could really educate myself on.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, the other thing that's so neat about Linux is that everything, especially Linux server, not necessarily, I mean, you can with Linux desktop also, but everything is text-based. Like everything you do is text-based. And being able to kind of think through it that way is a huge benefit. And the other thing is that like large language models, your ChatGPTs, your Claude, any of those, they're really good at understanding text. If you have a question about how to do something in Linux, like Google is great, but I find myself going to those much more often for kind of for if it's a one-off question or something, and using that instead. And like that is a really good way to kind of learn it too, is like, which we'll talk about this a little bit more in our second episode, but using AI as it's more of it allows you to move faster. It allows you to learn faster. It's not necessarily, I don't think it's best used as a complete replacement for people, but it allows you to understand things faster and to do things faster than you would previously. And using that as kind of getting up to speed with something it's really good at that.
Yeah. It's kind of like the way you put it. It's like having access to like a teaching assistant or a tutor right up front. And I think that in the past, like when I first started having to use something like a Copilot or a ChatGPT, I think that maybe I lacked the maturity right away to know how to effectively use it. But I think now I have a much better understanding that it's not necessarily there to really do everything for you, but kind of like the way you put it, it's there to assist you. And I think one massive benefit is that all over our industry, to solve a problem, Google is usually the first place we're going to go. And I think my favorite thing to use any type of AI assistant is to say, I'm trying to do this. I found this. How does this work? Can you explain it to me? Because sometimes somebody on Reddit or Stack Overflow is going to say, hey, I did this and it worked.
Yeah, but you have to go through the 20 people saying, you idiot, that's not the right way to do it.
So. You have to go through them. Or, and like when I learned Linux, admittedly, I got a lot of help from previous teammates, but it was always like, if you don't understand a command, don't run it. And now I get this benefit of that I could ask if I can't trust Google and if the man pages, I don't understand it, I got their backup. So go to my chat assistant and try to explain to me, hey, before I destroy something, what does this do? What does this mean? And it's teaching me too. Even if I didn't get to use that solution, I got benefit out of it.
Yeah, for sure. I always like to just have a system that's sitting over there. It can be a VM that you spun up somewhere. It's like, what happens if I run this command? It's like, I'm going to run it on this one, see what happens, understand it, and then I can just completely wipe that disk and start over if I need to. But,
And I think that's my favorite part is destroying a server and starting over. That's like that's my favorite thing. I have VirtualBox that I can just try to manage it from a command line and just guess what? I accidentally deleted too much stuff. Just destroy the server and we start over.
Start over again.
And I've learned my lesson. It's okay. Even though I'll do this again 5 times, I had the benefit out of it. Destroying a Windows server is much more less fun, and I feel guiltier about it.
Yeah, same. Same. But yeah, and like, I don't know, tools like Proxmox or any of those, or I mean, kind of your AWS EC2 instances and stuff like that, just being able to spin something up quickly and say, nope, that didn't work, and destroy it. Yeah, and it's
rebuild it from an ISO.
And being able to do that without having like your cloud images, being able to do that without having to completely reinstall the operating system is like you can do it in a matter of minutes versus kind of, I don't know, the last time I installed Windows, it's not a fun process.
You mentioned Proxmox. Like, Proxmox is awesome. I just in the last like 1 or 2 years got to play with it more. Yeah. And there were so many extra modules that I could have for it too. Like, I would, one of my teammates, they were like, let me show you my home lab. Yeah. And the plugins he had and the way he like diversified his Proxmox setup was the thing to me. Was he was like, oh, I have all these servers spun up for, there's a couple other game servers, a couple of website servers, Node application servers. And he had plugins that customized how he was getting reporting for either. And I'm like, this was someone who took the time to like, I can automate some of this. Yeah, I can automate my testing. I can automate my status pages. I can, and Proxmox made it so easy for him. But I guess that was,
Yeah, it's just it's so neat to be able to just have like, I mean, it's such a low, Proxmox especially, such a low overhead that there's not a big requirement. And it's so neat to be able to say, okay, like I have 6 servers or however many it is on this one computer, and I don't need that one anymore. We can move it, or be able to have several, like you can build up almost an infrastructure just with a couple of old computers and play with it. And there's the barrier to entry on that is so low that it's fun. And then, so I wanted to talk about Docker a little bit too, and just kind of using that as getting started, and in kind of as a tangent with that, looking at the awesome self-hosted GitHub page. So there's I don't know, I think they call them awesome.lists is the kind of but it's just a list of all this, like a lot of self-hosted stuff that you can run. Yeah. So like sometimes if I'm just wanting to solve a problem or wanting to work with something, like go look through that page for some inspiration. And if you're just getting started, like find a highly rated project on there, play with it, spin it up, whether like, I don't know, one of mine projects a couple years back was like, we have all these recipes that we use all the time, and if we're traveling, we can't ever find them again. Or my wife will find like some random online recipe and then never be able to find it again. But there are several options for this. I used Mealy, but it allows you to like just self-host like a recipe manager. It's like, wow, this is really cool. I did this like with just a few lines of code, and like it lives on your infrastructure. So just kind of, that's how I always recommend people get comfortable with things. It's like, okay, like turns out I probably shouldn't have this on the machine that's running everything else, because if it keeps crashing that, or you can kind of learn lessons the easy way at home that are rather expensive to learn elsewhere sometimes. So
yeah, I think that's everyone's always like advice for learning in IT is like, hey, go start a project, go do something. And so when it comes to like self-hosting, a lot of mine was like getting started with websites, and a lot of web hosting is Linux based, like, and wanting to get sites working, like WordPress sites and stuff. Yeah. That's really where I started. But I think the thing that like, I remember I had to struggle with was people would always say, go start a project.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is that like, that's a really broad like topic.
It's like, well, someone, what project should I start?
Yeah. And it also like, you know, if you're at work 8 hours a day, and then you come home and you only have a little bit of time, you might just not be brainstorming right. Like, awesome self-hosted has a lot of items where you can just like, I want to make a calendar software.
That
like,
looks kind of cool. I want to try this.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
I'll wipe it out and start something else.
Yeah. So, and it's like, oh, there's some documentation here, and it becomes an issue where when you first start doing something, you might not know. Like, obviously you're self-hosting it, so you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But now you're like, oh, as I'm reading stuff about this project, I'm familiarizing myself with the vocabulary that this thing is going to use.
Yeah.
And then you get to become more efficient at Googling, and you become like, if you're doing like maybe like an email server, you kind of get to learn new terms and things related to like SMTP and the ports used for those services, and what are some common, like, you just at the very beginning when someone's like, go start a project, like, that's a lot, but finding these options. And I know you talked about Docker. That's a big loaded example too. And that's something that took me a bit to get into, but yeah, those are all opportunities for you to kind of like, there's so much learning you can do, and so much like Docker images that you can learn from and see what they do too, that you can just borrow from online as like a template for your learning.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know, even setting the intent is like, I'm going to take some time on this. I want to figure out how to make this work. And like, you'll learn networking stuff, and like, it's like, oh, well, this database is acting strangely. Like, maybe I could make that work a little better. And so you just be curious about how something is working is my biggest thing. Yeah. Like, it takes a little bit more time, and I always like, I mean, I think I could use a screwdriver before I could use a crayon, but I always like knowing how things work.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, just be curious, have fun, like see what happens if you do this, break something.
Yeah. Break it. Yeah. Because you will anyway. You know, this is the first time you're doing something,
and then break it again. So.
Yeah. You're going to break it. And then usually in the future, when someone asks, does anyone know how to do this thing? You get to speak from experience. Yeah, I've broken some of those. I know what not to do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So that is kind of our charge for episode 1 is define, reframe problems, experiment with Linux. Next time, we're going to be talking about some of the tools, testing, and turning automations and these into some real value. So call to action, spin up a Linux VM, go get awesome self-hosted, go try something out, see what you can get to work. The barrier is so low if you just want to run it on your laptop and see if you can use a local host to see what you can do, or buy a cheap 1 liter PC off of eBay for like $30. Like, have fun.
So, I think that's the best option.
Yeah. That's the fun option, but
that's the fun option.
It turns into a rabbit hole, so be careful. But yeah. All right. Well, we will see you guys next time for part 2.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.